Marie Kondo is described on her website as a tidying expert. That in itself is quite strange. It's a bit like being an expert at washing dishes or taking showers. I guess some people do it better than others, but do we really need an expert? What's even more incredible is that Marie Kondo has used this niche of tidying up to become a world-famous celebrity. Her books have been translated into 40 languages and have sold more than 10 million copies. Even more impressive, she reached the pinnacle of 21st century cultural influence by landing her own reality show on Netflix. All of this is making a real impact. For example, donations to Goodwill increased nationally in the US after the show came out on Netflix, and by up to 66% in the DC area. And so Marie Kondo might be one of the very few people ever to become rich through tidying up. On the notorious websites that talk about how much celebrities earn, we are told that her fortune amounts to $8 million, but that seems low to me. By selling 10 million books, she would have earned between 10 and 20 million. Add to that a Netflix series, which would have earned her at least a few million. Then there is her tidying consultancy certification and her e-commerce store. So the total amount has to be more than that. That's right, I did say e-commerce store. Marie Kondo, the expert who tells you to limit your possessions to have a minimalist home, has an e-commerce store where she sells hundreds of items, including a ceramic steamer for $216, paper bags to put the belongings you're getting rid of, a 5-pack costs $25, and this strange object called a tuning fork that you hit with a crystal to get a note, which Marie apparently always carries with her to help her to restore her sense of balance. It costs $75. So let me be clear, I am not criticizing. On the contrary, I admire what Marie Kondo has managed to achieve from the not so sexy idea of tidying up. It would be like discovering that someone became a multi-millionaire by teaching people how to brush their teeth. And if this same person also had a business selling candy, then I would be very interested. Let's take another example with the two guys who go by the Minimalists. For their brand name, you have to admit that they did embrace simplicity. But in terms of their content, they are pretty maximalist, since in addition to their 2 documentaries on Netflix, they rehash their message in 4 books and almost 400 podcast episodes. By my estimation, their Patreon alone brings in almost $1 million a year. So the question is the same as for Marie Kondo. Why are people so eager for content that tells them not to consume? Why are they willing to pay to be told not to buy anything? And what does that tell us about human psychology? Minimalism is clearly a useful idea. Over the years, you'll naturally buy items of various utility, and these items will accumulate. According to some tidying gurus, the average home in the US has 300,000 items. That sounds like a lot. But apparently, this counts each individual paperclip as one separate item. So that number is about as reliable as the sites telling you how much money celebrities make. To take a more convincing figure, we're also told that 82% of clothes are not worn. But you don't really need statistics to see that a house full of stuff is suffocating. Just look at episode 2 of Marie Kondo's series, where she helps a retired couple clear 150 bags of garbage from the house. It seems pretty obvious that in a society where companies spend billions to convince you to buy things, there needs to be a movement to counterbalance that. Otherwise, we will all end up buried in a pile of junk. That movement is called minimalism. This philosophy promises to save you money, reduce the mental burden of your possessions, and even save time for you to spend with your loved ones. But if minimalism was only about consuming less and cleaning up, we wouldn't need dozens of books and Netflix shows. There is something deeper happening here. For Marie Kondo, the purpose of tidying up is not simply to avoid your mother-in-law's nasty comments when she comes to dinner. Tidying up is more of a magical ritual that speaks to the deepest meaning of life. She explains her approach on her website. The question of what you want to own is actually the question of how you want to live your life. When you reassess your belongings and organize your home, you set the stage for a huge transformation. This is the magic of tidying. To get all these benefits, it's not enough to wander around your house with a garbage bag to pick up all the odds and ends that are lying around. You have to follow a very specific ritual. You must sort your belongings in the following order: clothes, books, papers, various objects, and finally, sentimental items. For each category, you start by making a huge pile with everything you have in the house. Then you're going to pick up each object one by one and ask yourself, does this spark joy? If the object gives you joy, you keep it. If it doesn't, you will thank the object for years of service and then get rid of it. The consequences can be quite extreme. In some cases, the result is to discard almost all your family photos, keeping only the 10 pictures you cherish the most. So Marie Kondo's trademark, which is actually the title of her second book, is that famous question, does this object spark joy? It's a pretty unusual way to tidy up your home. Some items are useful to have without particularly giving a spark of joy. For example, I wonder how Marie Kondo's method handles a toilet brush. A more pragmatic person would have wondered if this object is useful or even if it's necessary or indispensable. But a more pragmatic person would not have become a world-famous guru. They wouldn't have a show on Netflix. They probably wouldn't even have had enough material to write a book, let alone its 3 sequels. So it's no surprise that other minimalist gurus are offering equally extreme methods, even if they are not always so mystical. For example, the duo known as the Minimalist suggests you put all your stuff in cardboard boxes as if you were moving house. Then you only take out of the boxes what you need as you go along. And at the end of a given period, say a month, you get rid of the rest.
So this is my room's new fresh decorative design. And as you might notice, the primary decorative elements are cardboard boxes. And whereas normal people might have clothes in their closets, I have more cardboard boxes.
By following this method, YouTuber The Unlazy Way got rid of 88% of his belongings. But there are some people who go even further. Entrepreneur James Altucher decided he had too much stuff in his apartment. So one day he went on a trip and never came home. The lease on his apartment expired, he didn't renew it, and he didn't get a new apartment. Instead, he had someone come to his place and throw away everything, no exceptions.
She had a whole U-Haul, like 18-wheeler, every single day. She brought her husband, her 2 kids, her cousins, her nephews, and just all day long, every day for a week, they were pulling stuff out of my house and apartment. And I gave her 4 choices. Either keep it for yourself, give it to charity, sell it and keep the money for yourself, or throw an item away.
He then spent the next 2 years living in Airbnbs with all his belongings in a small bag. So all in all, we're pretty far from the idea that minimalism is just about avoiding buying things to have a tidier home. It has become a complete lifestyle and even a form of therapy. Coming to terms with your belongings is a way of coming to terms with your past. You have those who seek to sort out their past with a rather gentle and spiritual approach. Those who seek to instrumentalize it by throwing away what is no longer useful today. And those who seek to run away from it without ever looking back. The crazy thing about minimalism is that you can make a lot of money by telling people not to buy things. It's a pretty fascinating magic trick. Look, they'll tell you, what's important in life is your inner self, your experiences, and your relationships. So you have to get rid of most of your belongings to make room for all these beautiful things. And for the few objects you keep, it's important to choose the best quality to enhance your inner life. As a result, the minimalist doesn't necessarily spend less money. Where the average person fills his house with cheap stuff made in China, the minimalist may buy only 1 shirt a year, but he doesn't mind dropping a lot of money on it. He justifies it by telling himself it will last longer. What I have just described is literally Marie Kondo's philosophy. If you're looking for objects that create a spark of joy, then obviously you're not going to buy a pressure cooker at Walmart. You'll buy a ceramic rice cooker for $75, plus a traditional Japanese wooden spoon for $15, and enjoy it all in a handmade chestnut bowl worth $40. And so there was a lot of criticism on the internet when Marie Kondo launched her store because of the high cost of some items. Some called it hypocrisy. But I think they're wrong. Those people misunderstand Marie Kondo's spark of joy philosophy. The other big market for minimalist products is clothing, often sold with a focus on traveling. So we have a whole bunch of minimalist shoe brands like Allbirds, Vessi, and Suaves. These brands have a few things in common. First, they are relatively expensive, typically around $100 for a pair of shoes. Next, they justify that price by explaining that you will pretty much be able to live the rest of your life with 1 pair of shoes. Well, not the same pair of shoes, they'll wear out and you have to replace them, but at least with a single type of shoe. These shoes are supposed to be so versatile that you can wear them in town as well as on a trip to the mountain, on a boat, or even go clubbing. Suave's slogan summed up the idea: do anything with 1 pair of shoes. Then, these shoes claim to use high-tech and better quality materials than conventional shoes, which allows them to be waterproof or dry very quickly or to be comfortable all day long. Finally, there is often an ecological aspect which obviously works well with the principles of minimalism. But the ultimate in minimalist accessories is the travel bags. You're a minimalist, so you're a spirited soul who loves to travel. And you're not going to risk looking uncool by lugging Auntie Gladys's roller suitcase on your adventures in the Peruvian mountains. To go with your minimalist all-terrain shoes, you need a minimalist all-terrain bag. For example, our friends the Minimalist Duo have their brand of bags packed that are priced between $200 and $300. That's both expensive for a backpack and also right in the price range of those high-end minimalist bag brands like Minal and Tortuga. Once again, the idea is to have an all-purpose bag that you can take on your adventures around the world as well as to business appointments, made with advanced durable material and top-quality finishes, with some eco-awareness sprinkled on top. Thanks to a crowdfunding campaign where they disclosed their numbers, we know that the Pact brand has sold 24,000 bags in its first 4 years in business for a total revenue of $4.6 million. In 2020, despite COVID destroying the travel business, sales were up 32%, reaching $1.4 million for the year. They even share their margin, which is a whopping 75.86%. So they would have netted 3.5 million since the launch of the brand and a little over a million in 2020 alone. Not bad. The easy mistake is to think that minimalists are supposed to be detached from their belongings. But that is not the case. Because if you are really detached from your stuff, you don't really care about buying crappy plastic junk or having a slightly messy house. Instead, minimalists tend to be obsessed with their belongings. Check out how YouTube minimalist Matt Davella talks about the famous black t-shirt he wears in all of his videos.
I started to realize that every time I went to my dresser to pull out my clothes for the day, I would always go for my one favorite shirt if it was clean. And at that moment, I decided, why not just get nothing but my favorite shirts? Just buy 10 of my favorite shirts and wear that every single day. Although this color, the charcoal color that everybody now knows me for because I wear it all the time on this channel, has been discontinued. They don't make it anymore. I was looking everywhere online. It's just nowhere to be found. I know, I am just as disappointed as you. Just when you thought 2020 couldn't get any worse, it's gone.
For another example, take digital nomad blogger Tainan. Every year he publishes an exhaustive list of his travel gear, from underpants to computer to toothbrush. Every item is meticulously chosen. Take his Breitling, which costs more than $4,000. Tainan explains that he chose it because it's the only mechanical watch that can show all 24 time zones and can switch between them with a twist of the crown. He only owns one pair of shorts, but he moved heaven and earth to find one he could swim in, with enough pockets that would dry quickly, but at the same time be long enough to pass for city shorts. In the same vein, Joshua from the Minimalists takes his own kettle and coffee with him because he refuses to drink ordinary Nespresso.
I like to make coffee. I don't like to let my coffee experience be tainted by other people's bad coffee, so I bring coffee when I'm on the road as well. Either a pour over or sometimes I'll have a kettle, and there's this great instant coffee by Passenger. Now, you hear the words instant coffee and you freak out. It's the only instant coffee I would ever drink. Passenger is a great company.
Also, look at how Matt Davella talks about making coffee. It's an almost erotic experience.
Wait 30 seconds or so, and then add the rest of your water, slowly circling in and out. I'm not doing a great job right now because I'm trying to film at the same time as pour this coffee, so I messed up a little bit. Try not to hit the paper filter or the water will just shoot down the sides, creating a weaker cup. Taken
to extremes, minimalism is not about being detached from your possessions. It's fetishisms over the few belongings you have left. There is an unusual choice of words on Matt Davella's old About page. Hi, my name is Matt Davella. I am a minimalist, filmmaker, and I made the documentary Minimalism. Most people define themselves by their profession. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a surgeon, I'm a firefighter. That's very standard. People who have accomplished something recognizable also often use it in their bio. I founded this well-known company, I'm the author of this book, I directed this film. Again, that's normal. But even before he identifies his professions and even before talking about his biggest accomplishment, Matt Davella defines himself as a minimalist. And that's a pretty big deal. I play video games, but I don't define myself as a gamer. I draw a little, but I don't define myself as an artist. I don't throw trash on the ground, but I don't define myself as an environmentalist. And so saying I am a minimalist became a label, an identity you can claim for yourself. If minimalism was merely an aesthetic based on black t-shirts and empty apartments, then the adjective would be enough. You could have a minimalist apartment without claiming to be a minimalist. That's why other decorating styles have not become identities. If you like industrial design, you're not an industrialist. There is no label for that because your decor doesn't define you as a person. But minimalism can define you as a person, because minimalism isn't just about home decor. So why minimalism rather than other aesthetics? What's so special about not having a lot of stuff?
Marketing is no longer based on communicating facts about a product. Instead, they promise adventure or reputation, esteem, fulfillment, or romance. So what inner motivations are subconsciously guiding your purchases? What unhealthy motivations like greed or envy need to be rooted out? And what healthy motivations like meaning or significance need to find their fulfillment elsewhere?
That was Joshua Becker, another professional minimalist with 5 books under his belt. I have been using the word guru throughout the video, but here I think we can really use it without overstatement. I mean, did you notice the words he uses? It's almost a religious sermon, with 2 of the 7 deadly sins mentioned. We have envy and we have greed, and there is a very clear promise to find the meaning of life in minimalism. Most surprisingly, he splits our desires into 2 categories: pure motivations and impure motivations. That's the mark of a religion, creating a model of morality and separating the pure and the impure. And of course, the promise that if you keep on the right path, you will reach some form of paradise on earth. On the other hand, having a god is actually not necessary for a religion. Buddhism doesn't have a god, but it does have a strong focus on a pure body and mind and the promise that if you follow its teaching, you will be free from suffering. Though there are not many home decorating styles with these religious characteristics, minimalism is unique for its focus on purity, complete with a tendency to hunt heretics. Consider this, for example.
People saying you travel with too much stuff. You have way too many forks. I swear, I've gotten this comment on my apartment videos so many times. You have too many forks. I've got 8 forks in my house. Maybe they're joking. 4 big forks, 4 small forks. That's not too many forks, whether you're a minimalist or not. Sorry, I had to get that off my chest. That was really frustrating.
If minimalism was just a personal aesthetic preference, this debate wouldn't happen. But it has become a form of religion with sacred principles. And so, if you have too many forks, you are impure. The other big religious twist to minimalism is the conversion stories, which sound like remixes of the gospel. Check out this TEDx from writer Colin Wright, who had a revelation while looking at a shirt in his closet.
And I was a young person making a great deal of money and experiencing professional success. And like a lot of young people who make a great deal of money for the first time in their lives, I had bought a lot of stuff. But looking at that shirt, this valuable shirt, it was nice. It was really somewhat expensive shirt. And in that moment, I felt like Pharaoh. I felt like I was burying myself with my riches.
Or take the origin story of the minimalist duo.
Josh seemed happy for the first time in a really long time, like truly happy. Ecstatic. But I didn't understand why. We had worked side by side at the same corporation throughout our 20s, both climbing the ranks, and he had been just as miserable as me. Something had to have changed. To boot, he had just gone through 2 of the most difficult events of his life. His mother had just passed away, and his marriage ended, both in the same month. He wasn't supposed to be happy. He certainly wasn't supposed to be happier than me. So I did what any good best friend would do. I took Josh out to lunch. I sat him down and I asked him a question. Why the hell are you so happy? He spent the next 20 minutes telling me about something called minimalism.
It's a pretty incredible clip. He's telling us that his best friend lost his mother and got divorced, but he's never been happier because of minimalism. Like, my mom died, but it doesn't matter, at least my shoe closet is tidy. People who have a religion often find refuge in their faith when they lose a loved one. And apparently, if you lose your mother, you can find refuge in minimalism. At the beginning of this video, I was wondering how it was possible to make money by telling people not to buy things. And I think we have arrived at a pretty good explanation. Minimalism isn't just a cool decorating style. It's also an identity. You become a minimalist. And in adopting this label, you adopt a value system. You accept that there are pure and impure thoughts. It's no secret that becoming a religious leader is a good way to make money. Just look at the Indian guru Rajneesh and his 93 Rolls Royces. We're all looking for meaning and identity in a society that has lost many of its certainties. Minimalism is an identity among many others that we can cling to. It gives us precepts to follow, and the promise that following these rules can solve all our problems. Stress, financial issues, jealousy. Some will say that this is just a new form of materialism, and they will be correct. Minimalists are not at all detached from material objects. On the contrary, they select them carefully, catalog them, and fetishize them. And yeah, it seems unlikely that minimalism will be able to fulfill all its promises. I'm quite sure that if I lost a family member, I wouldn't find much comfort in my minimalist wardrobe. But that doesn't stop minimalism from helping a lot of people, including myself. Minimalism has been an important part of my life for years, and I even wore a black t-shirt in this video as a tribute to almost every minimalist YouTuber. So if you want to read Marie Kondo's books or buy a minimalist travel bag, go for it. You'll probably get a lot out of it. There is likely a placebo effect in the psychological benefits of minimalism. There is a bit of a cult vibe to the focus on purity. But it seems to me that religions don't have to be perfect for the people who follow them to find comfort. If you liked the video, hit subscribe or click here to see me break down one of the most beautiful scams ever filmed.